Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. This is another episode of how we deal with the information that we encounter daily. We are going to talk about misinformation and disinformation. Please stay tuned. In our last episode, we talked about information and the information pyramid. So if you know what information is, then what makes it disinformation, and what happens if there is misinformation? These two terms are usually being used interchangeably, which is not supposed to be so, because they are two different concepts. So what we are going to do today is to take you through the distinction, point out the distinction between misinformation and disinformation, and also let you know the effects of them. Talking about misinformation. Misinformation basically, we talked about information, and then we mentioned that it's where data is being processed to give meaning. So where that particular information misleads, when that particular information is meant to deceive someone, or when that particular information is ambiguous that we don't really understand, where that particular information contradicts or doesn't really communicate well. So we realize that in the diagram that we have on our screen, you see misinformation is the broader one, and then we have a lot of things that is attached to it. So misinformation can be misleading, it can be fake, it can be fraudulent. So it is simply not true. Misinformation is information that is simply not true, and it is not misinformation because it is not true. It is misinformation because it is misleading someone. It is fraudulent. It is a lie, or it is deceiving someone. So that is misinformation. So if you are misinforming someone, you'll be doing any of these things, that is lying about a particular information, deceiving someone about the information, or misleading that person with a particular information. We will get to define it very well in detail when we get to the next 2 or 3 slides. And then let's look at this information. The diagram over here also is pointing to this information at the center of it. And then you realize that it is also when you are being dishonest. So you see why people use it interchangeably. Misinformation talks about lying, and disinformation talks about dishonesty. So when the information is inaccurate, but they are not the same. When the information is inaccurate, when the information is also misleading, when the information is a misinformation. So we can have misinformation in disinformation. If I'm misinforming you, I will be disinforming you also. So this is just a picture view of what misinformation and disinformation is. Now let's get to see what distinguish the two. So what makes misinformation not the same as disinformation? And this is very important. When we talk about misinformation, it is when you have an information that you think it is true, but it is not true. So I have an information that Amma is sick, but Amma is not sick. You think it is true that Amma is sick, so you go ahead and share with others that Amma is sick. But in actual fact, Amma is not sick. That is misinformation. So misinformation can be defined as sharing information that you think is true when it is not. So the moment you share information which is not true, but you think it's true, then misinformation has happened. And the most common thing that happens, I know misinformation happens a lot, but the most common thing that happens is disinformation. You know it is not true, but you will still share. It happens a lot. You know it is not true, but you will still say it anyway. So you know Amma is not sick, but you just want to say it. You know COVID-19 has not killed 10 million people in Ashanti region, but you still go ahead and say it. There are a lot of things that happen with how we deal with information. So you know it is important that we point out how you deal with the information when you get it. Make sure you don't misinform and make sure you don't disinform. Let me give you an example of misinformation. Usually we get a lot of messages on our WhatsApp platforms, which is admonishing us to share to others, forward to other people, and then this would happen, forward to, it gives instructions. And you see people all the time forwarding that particular message. So the message gets to you, and then you would see that it has been forwarded many times. The person sharing that information to you or to me thinks it is true that the moment she shares the information with 10 people, he's going to get a particular thing or something is going to happen. But in actual fact, nothing is going to happen. So in this situation, you are sharing information thinking it is true, but it is not true. That is misinformation. But the moment they send to you that this and this and that has happened. So let's say University of Ghana is closed down, and then you yourself, you are in the school. You know that things are running as they are supposed to, as they usually do, but you still decided to share that information or that news blog which is saying the school is closed, when you are actually in the school and you are seeing things happening. So you know that it is not true, the information you received is not true, but you shared it anyway. You did not care, and that needs to stop. So the difference between, you may see them being similar, but the first difference between misinformation and disinformation is that with misinformation you think it is true, but it is not. So you shared it because you think it is true. But disinformation, you know it is not true, but you shared it anyway. Let's look at the second difference. The second difference that we could point out from this is that with misinformation, you do not have any intention to deceive anybody. So it is not your intention that you will deceive the person you are sharing the information to. And it is so because you do not know that the information is false. You think it was true, and so therefore you shared it. So there is no clear intent to deceive the person to whom you are sharing the information to. But with this information, you have the clear intention to deceive the person you are sharing the information to. You know it is not true. Using the illustration we used earlier, you're in University of Ghana, you know things are running as they are supposed to, and you get a news blog or a news article saying that the school is closed. You share this information to someone when you knew as a fact that the university is not closed, but you still shared the information anyway. So you had the intention to deceive the person, to cause the person to panic or do any other thing that the information is not meant to. So it is intentional. Disinforming someone is intentional, but misinforming someone is not intentional. But that doesn't mean we can't put measures in place to avoid it. We need to do as much as we can to avoid misinforming. But with disinforming, you do not have to do that. Look at the third difference between misinformation and disinformation. When we talk about misinformation, we are talking about an information that is false and it has been shared without you thinking otherwise. So the information is not always malicious. It is not always the intention that you would want to cause panic or you would want to cause someone, or you want to deceive someone, or you would want to lie, or you want the information to have a negative effect on someone, that is not always the intention. It may happen, but with misinformation, you do not have, it is not your intention to share false information, but it happened because you did not take measures in place to ensure that those information to ensure that the information you're actually sharing is true. So with misinformation, the information is false, but you do not have any intention. You do not have any intention to deceive or any other malicious intent. But with disinformation, it is always to deceive. Because it is always to deceive, people will even fabricate some of those information to share. Even when it is not true, you know it is false, you shared it anyway. And even when it is not false, people would make it false. They will add their own version of the information in order to make it false. And that is not very nice of all of us. It is something that, once again, we have to avoid as much as we can. Why do people disinform at all? People may have reasons. For disinformation, you have no reason to disinform anybody. Do not attempt to disinform anybody. It is not the best thing that you need to do, because you will not be happy if you are disinformed. Do not attempt to disinform anybody. But why do people do that? Whichever reasons that they have, we are not going to talk about it, because we are on a journey to make sure that we deal with information the right way. So why do people misinform? The main reason is that they do not know that the information is false. That is why misinformation happens. When they do know that it's false, it will be disinformation, and that will not be a reason we would want to talk about. So in order to avoid those things, you need to make sure you put measures in place, just so you don't misinform people. Now, when you misinform someone, you know what happened? Just look at the person in this picture. This fine, beautiful lady here is all stressed out because she is being misinformed or disinformed. So you could see that she's just distorted. Everything is just distorted in her head. She can't process a thing, and that is because I or you chose to disinform or misinform her. So whenever you misinform someone, this is what happens to the person. The person ends up being messed up, and that is not the best. The moment you give someone false information, whether it is with the intent to deceive or not, whether it is misinformation or disinformation, the person relies on the information, make use of them, and then the end result is always not the best. So let's say someone with an examination timetable, let's use the University of Ghana examination timetable. We know that your exams is scheduled to take place on 14th November. And then I come to tell you that the exams is scheduled to take place on 15th November or even 14th November, but I give you a different time. I have disinformed you or misinformed you depending on the intention. And now you don't go to write the exams on 14th and at the time that you were supposed to come. What happens? You will not get that chance again to write the paper. You will have to reset. Meanwhile, you might have prepared very well to write the paper, but because of misinformation or disinformation, you weren't able to sit for the paper. So the moment you misinform someone, this is a very passionate appeal I make to all of us, that the moment you misinform or disinform someone, you cause the person a lot. You do a lot of damage to the person that if it was you probably wouldn't have been able to bear the consequences. So please do not misinform or disinform. So what do you have to do in order to protect yourself from being misinformed or disinformed? What do you have to do at all to protect yourself? Make sure that you change the fake news to fact. So you only share fact and not fake. Don't be too quick to turn the dice. Don't be too quick to turn the dice to make sure to just share. The moment you turn the dice, you overlook the fake parts and focus on the fact. So please don't be too quick to turn the dice. And if you're not being too quick to turn the dice, these are some of the things that you have to do. You need to check the source of the information that you have. Check to see that that information has a very authoritative source. So this is how you would avoid misinformation. For disinformation, you need to stop sharing, stop disinforming people. But from our misinformation, you have to check the source to see that the source is credible. It's a very authoritative one, and it's not just any other person writing something or creating that information for the reason of deception. And then you need to use the available sources, like authoritative sources, to check whether they are accurate, whether they are factual or they are fake. So you can use the library, you can use a software that you trust, you can use applications, you can use a lot of things. You can use captions that in order to know whether it's secured, the HTTPS and you need to know the domain and all the other things that it's important. See those things and point them out. It may be draining, but just for your own good, just so you don't consume anything to damage yourself or someone else. Make sure you use the available sources to check to see if the information is credible. You can use Dubawa. Yes, Dubawa. I think Dubawa.com. Yes, you can use Dubawa too. It's a fact-checking website that you can use to find out whether the information is false or the news that you've heard is false or true. So please make use of all the sources or the resources that are available for you. And the moment you make use of those sources, make sure you are seeing facts. And when you see facts, you will be able to share them. So what you have to do when you see you're able to spot the fake out of the fact, then you only have to share the facts. Do not share fake news. Do not share fake news. You don't have to share everything at all, do you? No. You do not have to share everything you see on social media, everything you see on your phone, everything you see wherever. You don't just have to share everything. You need to be selective as to what you consume. You need to make sure that you are not damaging someone's brain. You are not feeding someone with false information. So you have to make sure that you've checked your sources and then you are sharing only the facts and nothing more. But to those of us who have decided to disinform people, to intentionally deceive people and make sure that they put them through those damages that they have to they go through, damages they don't deserve, it is not the best that someone may even take you through. It is not the best. And if you are to go through the same ordeal, you will not be able to get back. You may not be able to sail through. So please stop sharing information to deceive. Stop disinforming. And please, another appeal, you have to stop fabricating. Just stop it. Stop fabricating stories. Don't share stories that you don't know. Stop creating stories, situations out of nothing. Make sure you share the ones that are only fact. Don't fabricate anything. If you don't know, just say you don't know. Don't tell lies. The Bible is against it. The Quran is against it. And I know you shouldn't be doing that also. So please stop fabricating. We are about ending our session, but I just want to talk to you about the fake news. When you hear or you see fake news, you don't even think about it. Don't give it a thought. Don't even think about it. Don't look at it. Don't give it a second view or a second thought. So when you see or hear fake information, don't even think about it. But if you decide to think about it or give it a second look, what you have to do is to make sure you don't share. Don't share. Just don't share. Don't. And that is where we bring in our session for today. Please do not misinform anybody. Do your best to check whatever information that you're sharing. Stop fabricating. Do not disinform. Whenever you have the intent to deceive someone, so you share false information, you are disinforming the person. And whenever you share an information thinking it is true when it is not, you are misinforming the person. This is the end of our session today. Please do subscribe for more, and please put this into practice. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.